All right, now we're live. I'm so rusty. I'm lazy. I intro now. Right. Welcome, folks, to Dynamo Comedy Podcast. I'm Louis Gregory Hall. Very good friend, Kat.
Hi.
Thank
you very much for having me back. It's always fun to talk, and I think we always have a good conversation when we get together. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this discussion goes.
I know. I usually get from my mouth, so that's why I became a stand-up.
How's that going, by the way?
It's going good. It's going good. When we're saying off here, I just been crazy busy. That's why I have a podcast. And doing a lot of Mike Circuit on your show this month and next. So anybody that's watched, if you're in the tri-state area, you want a good laugh, you can see me. I usually perform at the Climate Lounge every Saturday night and Sunday night at 8:30 for last. You can see the whole talent New York City comics. Now also I'll be at Laughing Jack Comedy at the No Fun Bar in New York City at 8 o'clock, and I'll be at Lovely Comedy Club September 12th, which is a Friday at 9:30. Check that out. Just laughs. But enough of my shameless.
Shameless self-promotion on your own podcast.
I hate it though. I feel like I'm blowing myself out.
That's what you got to do, though. That's how it goes. Everybody, you gotta. If you don't tell people what you're doing, people aren't going to know, and they're not going to be able to support your stuff. And I mean, every time somebody shows up on, the Tonight Show or the Daily Show or whatever, they're like, "And here's my book," or "And go see my movie in theaters this week." So it's it's how you do it.
That's the name of the game. It's the name of the game. It's kind of like when you want to job interview, prepare yourself. You're like, time to sell myself like for us.
But that's how you play the game. That's how you play the game. So. Yep. Yeah. So anyway.
How do you do?
I've been pretty good. Let's talk about me. Well, let's see. I've kind of actually been taking a break from my professional nerd activities, I guess you could say, and just kind of like focusing on quote unquote real life for a while. And part of it I think is actually going to be kind of a good segue into what we're talking about today, kind of as our main topic. Was just kind of starting to have a lot of mixed feelings about being a public female nerd on the internet. I kind of started pulling back on my own stuff around about early March, and it was at a point where there were a lot of news stories coming out about, well, not even news stories, like personal stories, I guess you could say, of women who are like established career. Like, I'm not just talking about somebody out there putting up her cosplay photos online, or it's just somebody who has a blog. Like, women who are established in the comic book, like professional comic book world, in the like professional writing world and that kind of thing, with long histories of employment in the genre, being harassed, being, people sending them emails, like photos of their houses, like, "I know where you live and I'm coming to kill you," like that kind of, that level of stuff. And after a while, you just keep reading all these things, and nothing happened to me personally. I want to be really clear on that. Like, I wasn't being harassed or anything. It was just at a moment where it was all just starting to feel like it was getting really too close, like people that I have personal connections with, sometimes with only a couple of degrees of separation, that kind of thing. It was like, there's a lot of this, I need to put this at arm's length for a moment here. And I just decided to kind of take a step back from it a little bit. And I'm gonna get back into it, but I'm gonna be doing things like, I've been talking to some professional artist friends of mine about doing some art that I can use as like icons, like profile pictures and like avatars and stuff online, just to kind of like, for branding purposes, but also to kind of help put that one more little layer in between me and the internet. Like, so far everybody that I've interacted with directly online has been fantastic. I've never, like I said, I've never had any harassment type experiences online, and in my professional life I've definitely had it in person, and I mean, I was stalked in college, so I know how it feels, and I'm like, I want to try to take every precaution I can to keep that from happening. I mean, I know that's kind of wishful thinking on some level. It's like, if you're a woman and you're getting into this, you're going to start, at some point, you're going to kind of have that realization, this is going to happen to me. What am I going to do when it does? Because it's the internet.
What they're going to do when that situation happens. This is kind of becoming problematic now on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a given. It's like when you ride a bike. When you're a kid and you're riding your bike, you've got to assume that at some point you're going to fall down and scrape your knee or something. It's par for the course now, and you just kind of have to figure out, like, okay, well, how am I going to deal with the trolls and with the beyond the trolls? Just regular trolls, they're just trolls. But people who start crossing the line into that harassment area of things, that's where you want to kind of start thinking, like, okay, how am I going to deal with this when it inevitably happens? Because I think pretty much every woman who's been out there on the internet on some level, has encountered this. So I think that's actually probably a really good way to start talking about, like, our cosplay discussion.
You want to crash course how to deal with? Because I know how to deal with them.
Yeah.
I got a history with them. I mean, that's the thing about stand-up. You got to deal with the heck.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've kind of got good, but I don't. It's weird with me because I'm from a different. I definitely encountered internet troll. I'm different. I don't do the whole behind the screen type of thing. So some something to me to say, oh, I'm doing. In my mind, I'm like, well, you come find me, that's gonna be the worst fucking
And as a guy, it's easier for you to say that.
This is true, and you're right.
Because I mean, feminism aside, it doesn't, all the attitude in the world doesn't change my size versus a guy who's 2 or 3 times my size. It's, it's just, you're automatically, as a woman, you're automatically at a physical disadvantage. So, I mean, I like to think I could, stand up and take care of myself, and on some level I can. But at the same time, I think we all try to be realistic about what we can and cannot accomplish. I mean, basically that's part of the reason that I run on a regular basis. It's a self-defense mechanism. Mm-hmm. If I have to run, if the best I could do is whack the guy with my purse and run away, then I've still been able to run away. I took martial arts in college, and my teacher, who was actually one of the other students there, told a story about his martial arts class that he visited when he went home, that he'd been for years had been studying at the same dojo, and one of the girls in his class got attacked one night, and she went back to the teacher and said, "I am so ashamed of myself. This guy attacked me, and all of my martial arts training went right out of my head. I just completely forgot everything. All I was able to do was hit him really hard with my purse and run away." And her teacher said, "But you were able to hit him really hard with your purse and run away, right?" And she's like, "Yeah." He's like, "That's the important thing. You're here. You're here. You're standing here."
That's the day. Because you go to that whole fight or flight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the whole fight or flight thing. Yeah, it's with the whole cosplay.
Yeah.
You know, what's going on with that? Like I feel what it take right now.
On the state of cosplay in general, or on the Comic-Con incident?
Well, let's jump into the Comic-Con incident. Comic-Con incident. She was living on the rock. So shit went down. A young girl who at first was thought to be assaulted. Found bleeding or something to that effect.
Yeah, head injuries.
Arrest. We got 29 years old, I believe. Photographer.
Yeah.
And I don't know. The story down.
I think, I mean, first off, I think we all need to agree that we don't know what happened here, one way or another. You know, it's still under investigation. She, from what we understand, the head injuries have contributed to some short-term memory loss with regard to the event on her part. I mean, if she regains her memories, then obviously we'll know a little bit more, but that's a limited resource right there. I mean, the guy involved, obviously, one way or another, whether he sexually assaulted her, whether he physically assaulted her, or whether they just had an argument and she ran off, which is basically what his side of the story is at this point. One way or another, he's in a really bad position because he's a 29-year-old guy who had a 17-year-old girl in his hotel room, and she ended up with head injuries outside on the pavement. I mean, I think that's basically, at this point, that's all we know for sure, is that he's 29, she's 17, and she ended up outside his hotel room on the pavement with head injuries. He, from what I've read, from what I understand, he believed her to be 20 until after she was found and they searched her purse and the police pulled out her ID and said, "Oh, look, she's 17. And he was like, "I thought she was 20. She said she was 20. That's, you know, that's his side of the story. I mean, whether or not the fact that she was cosplaying has anything to do with it, I'm not sure. You know, I mean, these sorts of things happen to women and girls all over the place, you know, not just in the cosplay community, not just to women who are, you know, wearing a short skirt. You know, this is a really complicated and sticky situation. And I think what we need to establish right here is that, you know, this conversation isn't about judging anybody. You know, this conversation isn't about trying to figure out what really happened. This conversation is about, like, hey, what's going on here? What does this say about the state of the cosplay community and how people react to this kind of thing when it does happen?
Yeah,
so
it's a situation. I mean, he said that. Here's the thing. Then he's out there. You got to start asking for like do something. Like Comic-Con, not the place. I mean, he beat some next place, but that ain't the place. That ain't the place of chill.
Yeah, I mean, picking up somebody at Comic-Con, oh, actually, okay, picking up somebody at Comic-Con may or may not be a good idea, but apparently, from the most recent information that I've read about this, he had a previous relationship with her.
Hmm.
That when the police arrived and there was a consensual search of his cell phone, or maybe it was her cell phone. Well, it couldn't have been her cell phone because she was unconscious and couldn't consent. There was apparently a consensual search of a cell phone by the police, and there was a text from like a while back, like a few weeks previous, that was basically a breakup text. So there
Wow.
was. Let me see.
They were no
Let me see
good.
if I can pull that information. A consensual search of Kaler's cell phone revealed a breakup text dated 7/15/14, so July 15th, in which he used her nickname. Okay, so this was his cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
He used her nickname and he referenced their dating relationship. A short time later, the girl woke up in the hospital and confirmed that she and Kaler had been having a sexual/dating relationship. So this wasn't just like some guy goes to a con and is like perving on an underage girl. There's so much here that is so very tangled, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, and that adds a whole other layer. So this isn't just like strangers meet at a con or anywhere. This is they had some kind of previous relationship on some level, which just makes it stickier.
Yeah, this is not looking good for Bloodborne.
Yeah, this is, I mean, one way or another, you know, he's in some trouble. It's just a question of how much trouble he's in. Now, one of the things, I know you and I were both commenting on a Facebook thread earlier in the day today, where apparently this girl's mother posted pictures of it. Is that what we were looking at? There were pictures of her, and there was like this big write-up by her mom saying like, because it's basically, you know, obviously this girl has been injured. She's had head injuries and skull fractures, and in these photos she's got a huge black eye on one side and like a more of a minor black eye on the other side, and basically the caption is like, well, does this look like the result of a fall to you? And then there's this whole like huge block of text about, apparently it seems to be written by this girl's mother, saying like, no, she was assaulted, this couldn't possibly have been a fall, she looks like she's been beaten up, blah, 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 blah. And to me, having known people who have fallen or gotten into car accidents and basically gotten smashed in the face, this does look to me, to my untrained eye, like, why, yes, it very well could be the result of her literally falling flat on her face. When you get hit in the face, bruising doesn't happen in a little blotch pattern. If you get hit,
at the end of the day, the only two people that know what happened are the two people that were involved. They kind of know fall on their face. And you get a black blue around this area.
Yeah.
If she put a foot, they could have gotten to something. That's what makes the very sticky.
Yeah. And I don't think anybody's case is being helped by anyone posting photos of her on the internet and putting it up for like the court of public opinion to decide whether or not this looks like an assault or a fall. I mean, to me, that's why we have professional crime scene investigators, and you know, we have sexual assault nurse examiners to go in, and I mean, they have a method. They have a scientific method to look at. Yeah. I mean, it's like when you look at a crime scene and you see blood splatter patterns, they mean certain things. You know, to the untrained eye, this could look like a beating, or it could look like she fell on her face. And I think that anyone posting pictures of her on the internet and putting it up for public debate is probably not going to help things. At worst, it could hurt, because then if something does shake out and there ends up being a jury trial, you know, then what situation are you in? You know?
Yeah, that's actually almost now you're allowed to public opinions. You know what I mean? And the court of law, they do shit like that. Hey,
Yeah.
for certain things, granted, this is already certain things
Yeah.
need to be closed doors.
Yeah. And I know that, like, a lot of the, like, some of the geek news outlets, like the Mary Sue, you know, like when they first posted things, they were in that situation of, like, does anybody know what happened? Are there any witnesses to come forward? Which is a responsible journalistic thing to do. And then when more information came out and they realized that, okay, we don't need a call for information anymore, they redacted their stories so that there weren't identifying, like, they didn't put her name out there. They were just, I mean, they reported it the way any newspaper would. A minor 17-year-old girl was found in this condition. A 29-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion. You know, they were reporting it the way any standard news agency would. And then, you know, from them to the Huffington Post and everybody, they've been really good about updating the story and saying, okay, this is now what we know, and now this is what we know. And from what I understand, you know, the guy has been released. I mean, I don't know if he's still being charged, because at first he was charged with having had sexual contact with a minor, I think. Let me just double check that.
Allegedly, the forward to. So if he allegedly
Yeah.
I mean, this is now the mother pictures like that, right?
Let me double check it. Because I don't want to be giving incorrect information. Let's see. This is like what we saw that kind of we were talking about earlier. So this is, yeah, I mean, in the text that's posted with the pictures, the writer is saying, quote, "my daughter" is okay. How she's, you know, and she's saying, "I'm posting pictures to let you see what I see," and she's basically very unhappy with how the police department is handling this. I mean, that's just the brief of the giant block of text where she goes into details and things. So I can only assume that this was posted by the mother of the girl in question.
So we'll say allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah, because obviously, I mean, somebody else could have posted it using her name, or, you know, or trying to make it look like this.
Just a side note, kids. If you get into media, when you're reporting stuff, always say allegedly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is not I'm not past judgment of the parents. But what I had an issue was, how do you let a 15-year-old child prevent your life?
Do we know if she was absolutely by herself or if she was with a group of friends?
Even with the group of friends, because I remember when I was in high school, when the prom came, I wanted to go to the show. Like, nah. And I was like, why not? 17.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, but then in 2 weeks you can go down to the shore. But
yeah.
You're like, why? Why? And then sort of, and the full picture of what's out that on. And by no means, no woman deserves to be assaulted, harassed, or disrespected by what she went for.
Yeah.
So you close out some lords. But when I look at the picture, like like fetal vertebrae.
Yeah.
And he had an ass out. And my whole problem with that was like, how would you let? Ain't no way in hell I'm gonna let my 17-year-old walk out the house with an ass out.
Yeah, my high school experience was very similar to yours. Yeah, at the age of 17, I mean, my parents probably, I mean, something as big as San Diego Comic-Con didn't exist when I was in high school. Like, there were cons, but they were small. I never went to any of them just because they weren't on my radar. Like, I lived in the middle of nowhere, you know. If I had known about them, then I probably could have, like, gone up to Montreal or something. But if I was 17, my parents wouldn't be letting me go across the border to Montreal by myself. You know, I would have had to have gone with, like, friends and one of my parents, or, like, friends and a parent of a friend that my mom trusted really, really well. And there's no way in hell that my mother would have let me go out of the house dressed like that. Now, all that being said, obviously bad decisions were made on somebody's part here, probably on multiple somebody's parts. There's speculation that the guy had given her alcohol and or drugs, in which case toxicology tests can be done to confirm whether or not that actually happened, and I'm sure that they will do that because that's part of a proper investigation. But let's say that she did consume drugs and or alcohol, which, I mean, drugs obviously are across the board illegal. Alcohol at the age of 17 is illegal. You know, I mean, teenagers, let's be realistic here. Teenagers are going to get away with whatever they can get away with. We were teenagers. You know, we got away with stuff. Even with strict parents, we got away with stuff.
See, I got away with stuff. Oh, I got away with a lot. That could be. I got away with stuff with the kids and like girls. Because I was my hormones was out of high school. Alcohol, believe it or not, I didn't start drinking until I got to college because my dad was but like my fault, like my parents didn't drink. Even when I even thought about stuff, like my father gonna bust in here and like punch me in my face. Let me not do that.
Well, and let's, I mean, it has been established that she had a previous relationship with this guy, and I can tell you from personal experience that the influence of a guy when you're 17 is a whole lot stronger than it should be. You know, I mean, she might have been at that point. I mean, most 17-year-olds are at that point where you want to push the boundaries. You're feeling like, I'm 17. I'm practically 8. Like you were saying, I'm going to be 18 in 2 weeks. What's the difference? You know? And so you have that feeling like you're so close to that border, and
you're right there.
Yeah.
Right there, because here's the thing: being a teenager, it's like a weird time because it's like,
yeah,
okay, wait. You're expected to act adult, but then the other hand,
you're old enough to know better, but young enough to try.
You're like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, wait, you will be acting like an adult, but I can't do it. You know what I mean? But like, but here's the thing: like, influence of women, I've seen it's strong. Let me tell you something. Anybody knows me, like when I had children, like this, I had to leave. I would worry. I would I'd be like, down. Now before your daddy met your mama, your daddy was now I'm gonna school you everything what you need to know. Okay. Daddy was pimp. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I was a former kid. I'm gonna let you know about these motherfuckers out here.
And a lot of times, I think that's what should happen. You know, we've got to be a little more forthright, I think, with our teenagers. You know, because exactly. But I mean, I think the more that we kind of dig into this really sticky situation here, I mean, the less it's about cosplay, and the less it's about the con. I mean, because really, it didn't happen at the con. It happened off-site.
It happened.
I mean, yeah. I mean, this could have been that a situation where she had gone to like a music festival, and it could have turned out the same way. I mean, she could have gone. I mean, it could have been that she had gone to like a summer program or something. I mean, like I have a friend who the first week she went to her college orientation, which was actually in the summer before college. It wasn't one of those like, you get to college and you have your orientation and then school begins. It was one of those like larger universities where they had to do it in phases. So like she went for a couple of weeks and then she went home again and then she went to college. And like in that like week-long orientation, like she came really close to getting sexually assaulted. And it was one of those situations where you're still like that 17, 18-year-old phase kind of thing. Your judgment isn't working very, very well. I mean, one way or another. I mean, here we are talking about like how could her mom let her out of the house like that? Well, for all we know, she shoved that costume in her bag, went to the con, and got dressed in the bathroom.
This is true.
I mean, one way or another, I think she made some bad choices. I think the guy definitely made some bad choices. And it led. I mean, this is a case of bad decision theater. The whole thing. And
we all made bad decisions in our life.
Yeah.
It not affect our lives.
Yeah. I mean, and there are times where I'm sure a lot of the listeners, kind of look back and think, oh shit, that could have gone so badly. Thank God X, Y, or Z didn't happen. And I think that when we look at a situation like this, and there are all those internet trolls out there that are like, well, she deserved it, blah, 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 and she should have gotten worse, blah, 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 blah. You know what? Take a look at your own life and some really shitty decisions that you've made, and those moments where you're like, if I had, when I drank that bottle of Jameson's all in one chug, if I'd turned left instead of right, that bus would have hit me. Whew, thank God that didn't happen.
I can't stand judgmental people like that. I had a situation where someone who I thought was, I'm not going to say any names, but who I thought was my friend, rolled on me about. I remember it was around Easter, and I did something. It was Jay and Silent Bob beat. And was for more. And I just put I feel about whatever. And she like me. It wasn't directed at it. But it was used like, oh, that's offensive. I'm a Christian. This is a Christian holiday. How can you do that? And I was like, what? Like, dude, what does it even have to do? Like, what are you talking like? It's totally different. I'm like, what? And I thought we were supposed to okay. Like, just and they tend to go down on the phone. Oh, I'm such a good. I don't have to now respect. Not, we all make mistakes. All have mistakes.
Yeah.
And the thing is, not mistakes. I was bad. But not to get off it. Going back to this whole troll.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. This is kind of my opinion. Anybody can help me. Help me pray. Whatever. But I start a lot of men disrespect women. This is my opinion. I think I'm always about it's about teaching generation. So as how do we teach young boys how to treat women? It's up to men to the young boy how to men. That's what they want. Where some not the root of it, but the problem. One of the problems is that you forgot how to treat a boy. And what I mean by being a man's with nothing. Being a man's my dad. I do disrespect women because how I saw my dad treat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He brought me. You know what I mean? I think that's me wrong.
Yeah, and I think we need to remember, and men need to remember, when they start engaging in that whole, like, well, she was asking for it, well, look at that Roger Rabbit cosplay she was wearing, what did she expect to happen, and that kind of thing, or she got herself drunk and, put herself in that position. Okay, guys, realize exactly what you're saying when you start to blame her for this. You are saying, well, men are savage and wild creatures who cannot control themselves. And if they see an attractive woman in a scanty outfit, okay, you're basically saying that that men's default state is rapist, and it's up to women to stop them by covering themselves up and acting, in a certain way. You're basically you're saying really horrible things about yourselves, guys. And maybe the guys who say this, maybe the guys who say this are the guys we need to be worried about.
All the guys, man, I'm going to say that. Okay, last year I was at New York. Okay, because I usually go every year. I believe it or not, I'm not going this year. But I usually go every year to New York Comic Con in Chapman Place. I got the thirst level at that was some thirsty ass. Woo there. Woo, it was thirst level. I'm like, you motherfuckers, I ain't this before. What's wrong with y'all? Listen, this is the thing. If you're a fucking teenager, I get it. Okay, fine. You gotta be a new. Okay, when I saw all these I damn near lost it. But when you become a man, the point where you learn control. Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, men have to see these women in cosplay. They got the stuff hanging out. I get it. But guess what? You ain't getting them. Some of them got boyfriends. Some of them are married. Or some of them just don't want your plain punk ass. Okay? You'd be like, oh, I'm awkward. How you doing? Can I get a picture? And start feeling her ass. Like, come on. It ain't going down. I see there was a girl. She was dressed as Black Cat, and she and there was a long line of people who wanted to take pictures. One wouldn't let her cruise. So thirsty. I'm sitting there. You ain't got no chance in hell, bruh. Just stop it. try to ask her, the little boy that wants to take a picture.
Yeah.
Girl.
Yeah. I don't know. I think there's. I have so many feels about cosplay in general. Like.
Let them out.
Okay. Because I've done some cosplay. I mean, I'm not nearly to the level that a lot of really amazing cosplayers have done. I've done, most of it is because it's the expense. If you're gonna do cosplay and do it well, it's really expensive. And I try to buy pieces that I can use for multiple costumes so that I can at least get a little bit more, wear out of them. And I think that cosplay is a wonderful creative outlet. I think It's an amazing craft. It's so much fun. And then there's like, problem solving when you're like, how am I going to get this thing to work? Like just trying to construct things. And I think it's so hands-on creative that it's fantastic. And I see a lot of guys doing it too, which I think is great. I see little kids doing it. It's something that anybody who has the desire can engage in and can participate in. At the same time, I think on a body positivity level, it's a double-edged sword, because a lot of times, basically what you're trying to do when you're cosplaying is you're trying to take a character that is almost always represented in 2 dimensions and drawn to unrealistic proportions and bring that to life. And sometimes that can be a challenge of costuming, but sometimes, and in fact more often, it's a challenge of trying to make your own body look a certain way. And I see a lot of potential there for it to go in a negative, that it can turn from something really positive and creative to something that's very self-critical. And I see a potential, this is not something that actually I've seen discussed a lot online. It could just be that I'm not in the right places to see it. Maybe, if anybody out there listening has seen this discussed online, please let me know, because I'd really be interested in reading about it. Trying to make yourself fit that ideal, and maybe one that is unrealistic for you to achieve.
Yeah.
There's a lot that can be done with things like push-up bras, and corsets, but a lot of the costumes are super revealing. If you want to dress as Star Sapphire, there's not a heck of a lot to hide there. You're literally putting your body out there on display, and it's simultaneously a really courageous thing to do, because putting yourself out there like that, you are risking a lot of criticism, and at the same time, putting yourself in that position personally, like for me, I have a really great Catwoman cosplay that I did that I can't do right now because I did it 25 pounds ago. And I can't fit into that costume right now. And there's that level of, how are you, the question that you have to ask yourself is, are you going to fall into potentially unhealthy eating and exercise habits in order to attain that? And that's something that, like I said, I haven't seen it discussed in the cosplay community, but I know it exists.
Yeah. I think even men too. Like, if I cosplay, I'm not built.
Yeah.
I even one thing I think I have is a lot of trolling and being plus size costumes, which I find very disgusting. You can expect that kind of thing. I've seen age. I remember, and actually sounded down a page devoted to making fun of plus size.
Yeah. And I think, and that's, unfortunately, that's the most common negative comments. It's not like, oh, the stitching on your costume is terrible, or God, can you imagine she put those boots for for her Wonder Woman costume? My God, it's so many of the critiques are based on fat shaming, and so few of them are based on you constructed a crappy costume.
Yeah.
You know, it's always kind of the default criticism is, oh, she's too fat to cosplay that character. You know, and I think this is, you know, one of those things. This is it adds to my mixed feelings about cosplay, and you know, there have been times where I almost didn't put on a costume because of how I felt about my body at the time. You know, I went to AggieCon a year and a half ago, and I brought my Wonder Woman costume with me, and you know, packing it, I was like, I don't know that I'm going to put this on, because I didn't feel like I was I didn't feel like I was at a point physically where I was really comfortable putting it on. I did end up doing it, and I was glad I did, because it was a good fun con, and when I cosplay, especially when I cosplay as Wonder Woman, I'm doing it for myself, but I'm also doing it for the kids. Like, the kids who are still little enough that, like, they believe that you really are the character, and there is nothing, like, nothing feels as good as when that little girl runs up to you, like, parents, who cares where my parents are, you know, like, they run up to you and, like, hug you around the legs, because they're tiny enough that they're really only coming up to your waist, and they believe that you are that character, and, like, you are just their dream come true. Like, you are literally their hero standing there in real life, and there is just nothing like that feeling. And that was the feeling that made me get into the costume that weekend. I see pictures of me that weekend, and I'm like, oh, okay, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't as bad as I thought, but I could do better, you know. But then I have to, like, kind of make sure I don't let that get too far. That, you know, in my head, that I'm like, okay, well, you better cut out some more of the. I mean, I can't cut out much more. I don't eat a lot of junk food, you know. Like, better up the running, better lift some more weights, you know. Maybe cut back on your portion sizes a little bit, you know, and trying to keep yourself from going down that road into an unhealthy weight loss situation.
I think
I'm trying really hard to avoid using the word eating disorder here.
I think what we have to do is, I think we have to go back to what this is one of my issues, as far as even just with the whole culture. I think at times we forget why we love this culture so much. Fun. You know what I mean? It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not something to stress about. This is something that's a stress. You know what I mean? Like, this is something fun. This is just like for me, it's a nerdy geeky shit. This is what I like.
Yeah. And when it stops being fun, you need to stop and take a moment and step back and get some perspective and say, okay, why is this not fun anymore? And if it's not fun anymore, why am I doing it?
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
And I think that's also kind of part of why I dialed back a little bit on like my writing and stuff, because it was just starting to feel overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot. I mean, I have a list of things to write about, and every now and then I just add to the list, like, all these problematic things that I think about with geek culture. I mean, it's such a great thing, and at the same time, it can be really stressful, because you feel like you need to do everything right, and like, you need to fit the mold, which is really ironic, because we all got into this in the first place because we didn't feel like we fit the mold, you know?
Yeah, that's like, we were the outsiders. Like, how?
Yeah.
We were the outsiders, and now we want to be a leader.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of and I really need to write an article on it, because
you should. You write an article. Let me tell you, it's funny. I got a bit that I'm working on my stand-up that I talk about black men. You know, and I say, you know, if you're white, you're black, like, if you in the bit, I said, a Comic-Con, you see a black dude with a Batman T-shirt and a lightsaber in his hand. You look at him like, nigga, what's going here? You get a little bit contact. But in the bit, from the outside in, I'm talking about the first that I saw. But really, I'm talking about me.
Yeah.
That guy in the shirt, me. That I'm talking about. You know what I mean? And even just being like, you're black, I gotta be black. Like, you know what I mean? I especially in this system, very monolithic on African Americans. You know what I mean? Like, hey, like for example, I remember years ago when Donald Trump campaigned against Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
He a lot of like hateful tweets. He called the N-word, things like that. And he's like, whatever. That's what he expected. But the one thing that he got pissed off with God, he was saying, do you really believe that black people living in Queens? That's science at the top. And that's what pissed him off. Why not?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I can see why. That kind of,
yeah.
I was raised in Jersey. I grew up in rough neighborhood, but I was fortunate enough that I was on the streets. I wasn't in the streets of who I was in. But times.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's that's a book right there. You know what you're talking about. That's a whole book. But yeah, I mean, it's it's kind of, I don't think that you and I are alone in feeling this. This kind of like, I wish we could go back to when we were little kids and what it was like, like when we were sitting at the uncool kids' table or eating lunch in the library like I did, and now, I mean, it's really great that so many people have discovered all of those things that we loved and that those people love them too. And it gives us, more people that we have a lot in common with and can become friends with. But at the same time, it starts to feel like there's a bar you have to reach to be considered a real nerd, whether you're a girl or a guy or whether you're black or white or Asian or whatever. And it's like, and each of those has the different stereotype. Like, if you're an Asian nerd, well, obviously you're going to be into anime, right? Maybe that's not your thing at all. It's like, if you're a girl, well, obviously you cosplay, right? Because girls are in this because they like to play dress up, right? There's still so much, and I'm literally like, I hadn't thought about talking about this tonight, so I didn't have any like prepared thoughts in my head about this. This is just ideas just kind of popping here and there right now as we're discussing this. But yeah, it's a blessing and a curse right now, I think, to be a nerd. It's the best of times, it's the worst of times.
Yeah, listen, folks, just fun. Don't go and then argue about who's better. Like, these characters don't even exist. Like, just have fun.
Yeah.
I remember Ninja Turtles comes out next week. And people just went to a shit. It came out. Let me just remind you that you're getting mad about your overgrown turtles. Let that sink in. You're stupid. You have to remind you fucking that shit look cool. Fucking no, I know hanging around with a bunch of turtles. Like, come on. Like, stop stop it. You want to, people just want to be haters. See, people are fucking bitches to the internet to let everybody have opinions. It's something else that's got to understand. We like what we like, but keep in mind there's another demographic that people have to reach, and that
Yeah.
some of this shit is fun. These don't know what kind of music. Some of them they don't know. Once is their shit. Let them have their fun. They got it. You know what I mean? Like would we land a movie good? Hell no. It sucked. But guess what? If I was like 20 years old, I probably would have liked it.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I haven't watched that first Ninja Turtles movie, the one that came out in like '91, I think it was. Like the very first live action. That I believe it was the summer of '91 or summer of '90. Damn it! Now I'm gonna have to go back and Google that. I think it was summer of '90.
I think I was in second grade. Oh shit!
All right, hold on.
I just showed my age like this old fuck.
And if let's internet to the rescue.
Looking this old fucking real.
I'm getting the 1990. 1990. Yep. So it was summer 1990. I haven't gone back and watched that since probably it came out on video, because I was like, oh look, it's out on video, I'll watch it again. Like, I have no idea how good that movie is anymore. I mean, when I was 13, I thought it was fantastic. You know, my 9-year-old brother thought it was the best thing ever, you know, and I'm sure my parents were like, oh dear God, I can't wait until they're old enough to sit in a theater by themselves. Like, when I think of the movies that my poor mother had to sit through, like Young Einstein and with Yahoo Serious.
Oh my God, my phone didn't see that shit.
Oh God, I'm so sorry, Mom. I am so sorry, Mom.
Oh, like I remember my dad having taken me to see Drop Dead Fred when that came out.
Oh no.
But see, that was the thing. It was like I can watch those shows now and still have a good time. I'm like, okay,
yeah.
You remember the Ewoks? Like the Ewoks.
Like just the Ewok? Like it was like a separate off by itself kind of thing?
Yeah, there was two of them. There was Ewoks.
Were those direct to video?
Yeah, they were straight to video.
Okay, that's why I don't remember.
And then there was Ewoks: The Battle for Endor. When I was a kid, I watched Ewoks: The Battle of Endor every fucking day of my life. Like that movie, that's my brass. I get that. Okay, please, bomb your tweet at Jerry Hall 5000. And let me know. That's my brat. I gotta get a hold of that film. Okay, but maybe a couple of years ago, I was like, this movie was horrible.
That happened to me with Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Speaking of movies that came out in the summer of like 1990, or I think that was summer ~91. But oh my God, when I was 14, that was my favorite movie ever. And then I saw it done by Master Pancake here in Austin, where basically, it's, for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, it's imagine Mystery Science Theater 3000 except done live with like 3 guys sitting in the front row, like with microphones, like making commentary throughout the movie. And I was like, oh my God, this movie is terrible. Why did I ever like this movie? I mean, when they did it, it was hilarious, and I honestly thought I was going to pee my pants. Like, I was laughing so hard. Like, but I was like, they're pointing out so many things. I'm like, oh God. Oh God.
Kevin Costner.
Let's just, I'm trying to imagine the director was like, Kevin, let's just not worry about the accent. Just as long as you're consistent, that's what's important. So just use your own accent, Kevin. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah, well, see, he went and fought in the Crusades, so when he was over there for those years,
he lost his accent.
He lost it. That's why I love Robin Hood Men in Tights. That's so fucking hilarious. That's what I love. But yeah, it's about having fun.
Yeah.
I go to the movies. I'm going just to have fun. I'm not. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be. I don't like this and this point and the camera goes all off. Let's shoot. Okay.
Yeah.
If you haven't made a movie, you have no enjoy it.
Yeah. So anyway, I think those are all my thoughts for the evening tonight.
Yeah.
I think now that we're talking about Ewoks and Robin Hood Men in Tights, I think we've officially hit the end of our structured discussion.
Well, this was a good discussion, and I thank you for coming on my show.
Yeah, it's always fun. Always fun to be here.
And I know I apologize. I've been so lax. I'm doing. I'll try to be ready in the future. Like I said, come to the clown. What else did they say? I'm all fucked up. But you know what? Follow me on Twitter at all 5,000, and just tweet me, and find me on Facebook /Gregory W. Hall, and you'll get all my information. Rock City, everything like that. Thank you so much for coming on my show.
Thank you for inviting me.
And viewers, thank you for watching us. And I see you later. Peace.